How have you been taught to ride a circle or ride a turn? I want you to actually stop and think about what are the instructions that you've been given and what do you do to ride that turn? Do you pull on the inside rein to tell your horse to go that direction? Do you take your inside leg back? Maybe you take your outside leg back, or maybe you've been told to bring it forward. There's so many different instructions that are given to riders about what we're supposed to do around the turn, how we're supposed to give the signals to the horse, and a lot of times they're conflicting. In this video, you're going to meet Wendy Murdoch, who's an international riding instructor and clinician. And with her two skeletons, she's going to be showing us how we actually need to ride a circle or a turn to be able to communicate to the horse and to be able to stay in the best balance possible.
One of the most common things that I'm asked about when I'm teaching riding is how to ride a circle or turn. And my first question is to people, well, what are you doing? What have you been told to do, and what do you think you're doing? And those are three really different questions. And I get all kinds of answers. Oh, well, I put my leg here, I put my leg there, I shift my weight, this rein, opening, down, across. There's so many different answers. And to me, what I'm looking for is an answer that every horse will hear, a universal message to the horse that means circle or turn. And the other thing for me that's so important is that we don't interfere with the horse's back when we ride a circle or turn. So the rider's seat bones only have about 4 inches between them, maybe 3.5 to 4 inches. That's not very wide. And the horse's spine, with the nerves coming out, and happy horse here, we can't see any nerves, he doesn't have any, but the width of his vertebrae with the nerves coming out is about 4 inches. So if we do anything that shifts our body and then puts pressure on the vertebrae, it's going to, yeah, the horse might turn, but we're going to lose something. And one of that is comfort for both of us. So what I like to think about riding a circle or turn is that I need to stay in the middle and then find that message that every horse I get on will understand. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is to show you what a universal message is that every horse will hear. Yes, some of them might take a little while to catch on because they're looking for what they've been trained to do. And that's the distinction that we have to make, is that we can teach the horse to turn from almost any signal, but what's the one that they hear innately and that you can go from horse to horse and the horse says, oh, you're saying turn. And to do that, we've got to look at the pelvis. Okay, and so I'm just going to slide Elmer's hands out of the way a little bit. I'm going to hold him up. And here's the top of our pelvis, the iliac crest, where our belt sits. Here's our hip joints and our seat bones. And so if we do anything like leaning or tilting or dropping our shoulder, we're shifting our weight and we're impacting what's happening on that horse's spine. So the way I like to think about it is keeping everything level, so I maintain the space for my horse's back under my seat. My hip joints need to be greasy, right? But I don't need to think about my legs. I just think about turning my pelvis a little bit, okay? And literally that little amount turns most horses, okay? And you can see that as I do that, his whole body is following this movement, just like that. So that's a right turn, and there's a left turn. Now, a lot of people want to start their turns from their shoulders. So Callie, I'm going to hold the pelvis still, and you're going to turn his upper body. And how much do we have to do there before we get a movement down in the pelvis, which is sitting on his back, right? We have to do so much more than if we just simply think about turning from the pelvis, keeping everything level so that we don't impinge on his spine, and that allows him to follow that around a turn. So we're going to take a look at this from a different perspective so you can see it head on. All right, so now we're looking at this head on. Horse has put his head down so we can see what's going on. I'm just going to take my hands here on the pelvis, and I'm just going to do a tiny little movement. There's our right turn. Now, the reason I can't do more, and you wouldn't need to do more, is because the horse would have turned. happy horse here isn't going to. He's pretty rigid. And so, you know, if we do more, if I exaggerate it, now you can see I'm sliding over the saddle. So I want to think about, I indicate the turn, turning my pelvis. It turns my whole body. And my hips are free enough to follow so that my legs do what they're supposed to do, inside leg at the girth, outside leg behind the girth, without ever having to do anything with my legs. But that's a function of having the nice greasy hips. So here's a right turn, back to middle, left turn, okay? What a lot of people want to do is shift their weight. So Callie, I'm going to shift my weight to my outside seat bone, and then what you can see is now this hip is going to have to grab on the saddle to hold the rider on. And this seat bone is now dropped down. And then what most people do to counter that is they lean over, because if they stay here, they're going to feel like they're falling off. So they lean over and they tilt their head, and then they want to take their rein and pull their rein across, but all their upper body's going one direction and all their lower body's going the other, and it grabs on the saddle and it rotates the saddle and puts pressure on the horse's spine. So that's why I think it's, yes, the horse will turn from that if he's learned to turn from that, but a lot of horses will actually run through the shoulder because the body weight is on the outside no matter how much the rider tries with the rein. So if we want to make our aids really subtle and be really clear to the horse, it's really important that we get in the middle, have free hip joints, and make small movements that indicate. Okay, so I always think of seat setting direction rather than weight leaning over. All right, does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so, you know, next time you're riding a circular turn, just think about finding the middle and then just indicating. Some people think about pointing their belt buckle or their belly button, but just indicating where you want to go. And if you do this quietly at the walk, when you have not too much going on in the arena, just let your horse show you what he hears. And it might be really interesting.
After what we've just learned with Wendy, I want to go back to that first question. What have you been told to do to turn your horse or to ride a circle? Put it in the comments down below, and also put in the comments, what are you going to do differently now that you've watched this video? If you're interested in learning more with Wendy, the options are down below. Wendy teaches several online courses here at Horse Class, as well as comes to our farm campus for clinics and events. So scroll down to learn more, and we'd love to have you in one of our classes soon.